Hi, and welcome to Marketing Eye podcast. I'm Anna D'Souza, and this is the very first of the many podcasts that we're going to have. Today in the podcast, we have Mellissah Smith, who's the managing director at Robotic Marketer and Marketing Eye, and many other businesses over time.
Yay!
We have Kate Hanley. She's one of our newer recruits at Marketing Eye. Kate has some experience in real estate. She has worked in technology. She's also one of our marketing managers here at Marketing Eye now. We have Lennia Pedroso. She is Carrier Books ambassador, actually.
Yay! Plug there.
Yeah, I know, shameless plug. She is also one of the marketing execs working on several corporate accounts across Australia. And myself, Anna. I am a robotic marketer, marketing strategy consultant, and I work with a lot of leading technology firms and other related small businesses. And we're going to be talking about really how Gen Z is kind of coping with the whole current climate and transitioning from university to the workforce and the problems associated, the opportunities that are there and how they can improve and what are the tips really to navigate that. So just, Lennia, maybe you could start off and just tell us, you were just talking about it the other day and letting us know that how your friends have been coping with this.
Thank you, Anna. I'd love to share my insight on the current lockdown happening in 2020. So these past few months in lockdown have been especially challenging for myself, as I am actually an extrovert and love to be in a social setting outside, doing things, going out, pretty much never at home. Since, I guess, March this year, when we got the first restrictions, it was a challenge for most of us. Being inside and working from home has made me learn how to adapt to such a different climate. I mean, some challenges that I've faced during lockdown was staying at home and working remotely. As a marketing executive, I like to bounce off my colleagues, get ideas, brainstorm as a group in real time. And I guess working from home, we had to do that online, which was a bit different, but something you had to get used to. A good thing that I found, however, was being able to
get home cooked meals, right?
Yeah, that's right. What else? I spent a lot of time reading, and
yeah, I found, like, as you know, a boss, I found that a lot of the young people from our office, and you inclusive, Lennia, really, you're working longer hours. I don't think you really realised that you were. You were learning more. You were spending more time, surfing the net, listening to podcasts, listening to videos, YouTube, training tutorials, all these things that sometimes in our normal busy life where we go to work and then we go out afterwards to catch up with friends for drinks, we don't get time. And then we're always chasing our tail, trying to get through the week and looking forward to that Friday. And I found that, Lennia, you're amongst the crew that really flourished in some ways in this changed environment, but at the same time, it's been a bit of a Debbie Downer. And I would say that because that interaction's been very hard, and I know that some days I don't communicate enough with my team, and vice versa, you guys don't communicate enough with each other as colleagues. You're less likely to pick up the phone or Skype each other or participate in a Zoom meeting because there's some steps involved in it, rather than sort of turn around on your chair and go, hey, what about this, or what do you think of that, or can you have a look at this work that I've just done?
Yeah, for me particularly, I was not about the lockdown life. I live alone, so there's not a lot of interaction between people, really. So I really wanted that collaborative environment. And also what I've noticed in lockdown is if you do a mistake and you want to change something, it's a whole lot of things that you need to do. And sometimes that doesn't come across when you're just typing or you're speaking to someone virtually. it may come across as, judgmental or
passive
aggressive. Those smiley faces can seem like they're passive aggressive too. And also, this is a little funny, but if I'm at home, I want to be eating all the time. So lockdown hasn't been the best thing for me. I'm very, very ready for this whole thing to be over so I can move on with my life. What about you, Kate?
I think a lot of people have found this time good in some ways in terms of upskilling. I think we touched on that before. I know a lot of people that have done additional courses or have participated in things that they may not have had the opportunity to do before, purely because they do have that extra time. Now that they no longer potentially have to commute, I think that's really helped a lot of people as well. I know quite a few friends have had improved relationships. Is something that's come out of this, because they are spending more time at home with their partner. I know some people have had the opposite effect. But I've spoken to quite a few.
Half of Hollywood?
Yeah, exactly. Divorce attorneys are doing well.
Yeah.
And I think it's just been a really interesting experience. I don't think I'd want to do it again. I personally have enjoyed working from home for the first maybe 6 weeks, and then I was ready to come back to the office because I really miss that social interaction.
Yeah.
I really miss the collaboration. I mean, we're marketers. That's what we love to do. We vibe off people. That is our whole job. So I think that's been really challenging for a lot of us in that sense. But then I think there's been a positive and a negative to it as well. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, I think, for the next generation and how they're going to experience coming out of lockdown and trying to find jobs as we move into the new COVID era.
Absolutely. I think that young people have different challenges to, the generation before them. Millennials, we thought that was hard, that transition from college through to a career was, a big step. But I think more so today, that challenge is going to be more evident in the way that university graduates go into the workforce and how many opportunities that are going to be there for them and what sort of opportunities will actually suit their needs, because they're used to working from home. But what if that is not available to them? How will they react? Will they want those jobs? It'll be really interesting. Lenny, are you finding with your friends, given that a lot of them are in that generation, whether they are excited about going into the workforce, or is there a new hesitation that's really been driven from this COVID environment?
Being a recent graduate myself, I was fortunate enough to land a job early this year, right before the COVID peak, the announcement and lockdown. However, some of my friends, a lot of people that I do know in my cohort, are finding it really hard to find a new job straight out of university. We've heard that the employment rate has dropped drastically this year, so there's more competition out there and more pressure on both the unemployed and recent graduates to find a job.
Do you think your friends are searching as hard as what they may have previously?
That's an interesting question, because I guess everyone's motivation is a bit different right now. You've got some people who are still driven, who are still motivated, who want to get out of it. Not get out of the house, but learn.
Yeah, they want to get out of the house.
That's literally it.
Get out of the house and go to work. A lot of people do want to grow as well. So they're searching for jobs, more motivated to keep learning. Whereas you have a handful of people who do enjoy the lockdown, having less responsibilities,
more Netflix,
more free time, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. What's going to happen when lockdown ends?
Yeah.
It was hard enough pre-COVID to find a job. Now, with a lot of unemployed people, there's a lot more competition out there with people who are highly qualified for the job that you're competing against.
Yeah.
So these unemployed, highly qualified people would also be willing to maybe sacrifice salary. They're willing to do the small, menial jobs as well, because any money is some money, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting how millennials and Gen Z and people just coming out of university are really going to show what value they bring to the table, because that's what it's all about, and really use their marketing skills. So that's where why they've become marketers comes
Yeah.
into play, really.
It's interesting that you would say that because, being a person who receives so many CVs in my era, I remember the amount of effort I put into my own CV. And, back then we used Quark Express and Corel Draw, names that you wouldn't know, but the equivalent of Adobe.
By the way, we're all looking at her like she's got two heads right now. We're not quite sure what she's talking about.
So very, very old school programs, and I would spend hours, designing up my CV. But I receive CVs now with no creativity, no sense of what makes them different from someone else. And I think a little bit of that's taught at university. I think you're taught this is the format you need to do your CV in, and that's it. This is how you write a covering letter. The other thing is, I think there's a certain amount of laziness. How many covering letters do you actually get? Not a lot. So really, that expectation that you should just be happy with my CV. But if your CV looks like everyone else's CV, how do you tell one person from another? How do you make that choice? Who should be shortlisted for a job interview? It's very, very difficult.
So just wondering, so if I were to be someone joining the workforce right now, what would be something in addition to a cover letter? Yes, cover letters are important. And yes, you can show your personality and what you bring to the table through that. What in addition to that do you think is something that would help young marketers stand out from the crowd?
I think it's really important for young marketers to show their creativity. Marketing is about being creative. It's about thinking differently. Particularly now, it's about adaptation. How are you adapting the way that you market to new environments? And, really, it's from a marketer's perspective, it's quite easy to be creative. There's so many resources that are in front of you. And even if you're not the most creative person, you've got the whole internet to actually get ideas and to help really spiral those creative juices to put something together.
You also have a program called Canva, which we love in this office. Our graphic designer hates it, but we all love it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of programs out there that people can use. But when you're applying for a job, having a portfolio. Now, if you're at university and you haven't done an internship, shame on you. I'm sorry. You do need to have some practical skills, because what you learn at university is not what you're going to use necessarily in the workforce. And I think, have you found that you've used exactly what you learned at university in the workforce? I think not.
I don't think I've used maybe even a quarter or a half of what I probably learned in textbook university. I think it's having real world life experiences, and I think they are what shape you and what make you to be the marketer that you are today, particularly given the current situation, having that swing to digital. I think being across that, I've really found where I personally have had some gaps, and I went back and did a course, like just a short course, but I think it's really important about doing that sort of learning, but that also led to improved real life situations and being able to adapt in that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I learned the hard way, because, you spend all this money on your education, your master's degree, your bachelor's degree, and you're just like, and you come to the office and you don't use half the things. Yes, it's important. It provides you the foundation, but you don't use half of the things. And you're just like, oh, great, I just wasted so much money on it. Not saying that university degrees are not important. They're very important. But I think internships are critical, and they're essential for, just understanding what the workforce is, dipping your toes into that environment. And I felt in the internships that I've done, it's given me that understanding what it means to have deadlines, what it means to, develop content, what it means to develop, say, social media calendars and stuff like that. Gives you an understanding. Yes, you're not, the expert at the end of the internship, but you've learned a whole lot, which will help you in the next job.
I think it really helps with giving a reason to why you're doing it too. Like, you can learn 1,000 things through textbooks, but I think having that reason, internships give you the reason behind why we do things.
What I've found with internships today is it's been very difficult for them, especially with this new remote learning environment.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the hardest internship programs or eras that young people can go through. And I'm very sympathetic to their journey over the last 6 months, because here they are, many having finished their degree, really ready and ripe to go out into the world and start the next chapter. And all of a sudden, they're told that the next chapter's at home.
The opportunities within the workforce are definitely shifting, and I think, like you said, they're ready to go out there and they're ready to do their thing and show what they're made of. Unfortunately, that opportunity hasn't presented itself in the way that they thought it might, and therefore they've had to take on more internships or further themselves in other ways rather than go straight to the workforce, or also go into the workforce in such a different era.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really concerned with this next generation coming through and the experiences they're having and how different it is to the people before them, the generations before them. What I would like to see is that there's some sort of commonality or a better understanding and a better support mechanism to these young people, and also helping change their mindsets, because I think it can be quite daunting having come out into the world at this point in time, whether you want to stay at home and you want to watch Netflix and you're getting a great income from the government right now, much more than you would be any other time in history, or whether it's the opposite, you're ready to go out into the workforce or travel the world. I mean, you've got to remember this gap here. All these people are missing out on that big opportunity that I've had, that probably each of you have had. And I think that that's really important to bear in mind. Now, just closing today, what is one thing that you see as being pivotal to young people, that Generation Z, that with going into the workforce, what is the one thing that actually they need to be aware of, or they need to be mindful of as they make this transition and they tackle what's next?
So I think a big one will be culture. I know it's a real buzzword, and I know a lot of people love to throw it around, and a lot of workforces use it in different ways, and it was and probably still is a real focal point for a lot of companies, but I think that will shift given the current climate of people working from home. And we don't know when that will change or when it will go back to, as we say, the new normal. So I think that's something to be really conscious of, is to how will workforces implement that with new staff, and how they're going to onboard them to ensure that they still get the same experiences as what previous staff have had. So I think that's something generation and even new workers looking for new jobs to find.
I think coming into the workforce, especially at this time, is to have a really positive mindset. I mean, you see in movies, or you have this expectation of a stereotypical corporate world where things are, and have an expectation. You need to shift that mindset to have your, mind be open to a new experience, and
really to just change, to accept change, and to adapt to change, and to not be afraid of the unknown.
Yeah, totally. Personally, I work with a lot of interns. What I've noticed that I particularly like when I'm working with them is being proactive and, showing that I want to work, I want to do this, I want to help out wherever I can. If that means staying a little later than usual, I don't recommend it, but it just shows that you want to work and you want to better yourself and you want to show that you're worthy of being part of that workforce and that culture. Because sometimes in marketing, you need to do overtime too. And it just shows that you're ready to be there. Yeah, that's probably my 2 cents. So, yeah, it's been a really good conversation, I think. We've learned a lot. It is going to help us as well personally. I think, we have young people in our lives as well, and it's a good opportunity to give them advice of what they need to look at. I think it's not just for marketers, it's just in general for young people joining the workforce. So I really want to thank each of you for being here. Mellissah, thank you. Kate, thank you. Lennia, thank you. You guys are awesome. We'll see you probably next week. Bye.